On this Memorial Day, we remember all those who have died who served our nation in the armed forces, in any war, in any peacetime deployment, in any branch of service. These who gave any number of years in service to us, especially those who gave the last full measure of devotion to their country, are to be honored and remembered always. In our family, we remember ancestors who fought in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War and both World Wars. Mark's grandfather served in World War I. His father served in World War II. His brother Eric is retired from the Air National Guard. My father served in World War II, and his brother, my Uncle Carl, was killed in the war after landing at Normandy, after surviving the siege and fall of Berlin, only to be killed when a saboteur blew up the troop train on which he was traveling through France on his way back home. Those of us who have not served cannot fully understand the cost, the sacrifice demanded of those who have served. There is one that I know of in our own church, George Wilkerson, who was among the American soldiers who liberated one of the Nazi death camps. There is no way for any of us who were not there to understand what it means to carry the memory of what he saw there once he himself survived and came back home. And those who did not survive, or who came back home with grievous injuries, are carried forever in the hearts of their comrades. One of my favorite stories that speaks of the devotion that soldiers have to one another appears in 2 Samuel chapter 23, verses 13 through 17. The passage says, "Toward the beginning of harvest, 3 of the 30 chiefs went down to join David at the cave of Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. David said longingly, 'Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate.' So the 3 warriors broke through the camp of the Philistines, drew water from the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and brought it to David. But he would not drink of it. He poured it out to the Lord, for he said, 'The Lord forbid that I should do this. Can I drink the blood of these men who went at the risk of their lives?' Therefore he would not drink it. The 3 warriors did these things. To David's soldiers, the water that they retrieved at the risk of their lives represented their love for their commander, who had merely been musing wistfully, longing for the water from the well in the town where he was born, now captured and occupied by the enemy. To David, who understood that they may have died committing this foolhardy act of devotion to him, knew that the water represented something so much more valuable that it could only be offered to God, and so he poured it out to God as a gesture of reverence. It wasn't that he rejected their gift. He knew he was not worthy of it. Such love and loyalty, such foolhardy devotion exists in few places in life outside of the lives lived in the military. To close out our reflection on Memorial Day, I want to share with you a story from the life of the great Catholic scholar and theologian Thomas Merton. Merton lost a brother in military service. His brother's plane went down and his body was never recovered. Many years later, after Merton had become a Trappist monk and a hermit, the loss of his brother, in that way that prevented religious ceremonies or the arrival of his body at any final resting place, lingered in Merton's soul until he finally put his feelings about this tragedy into one of the most beautiful religious poems I have ever heard. As I read it for you, hold in your heart a prayer of gratitude for all who have served and now have died. Hear the poem Thomas Merton wrote for his brother. It is entitled, "For My Brother Missing in Action, 1943. Sweet brother, if I do not sleep, my eyes are flowers for your tomb. And if I cannot eat my bread, my fasts shall live like willows where you died. If in the heat I find no water for my thirst shall turn to springs for you, poor traveler. Where, in what desolate and smoky country lies your poor body, lost and dead? And in what landscape of disaster has your unhappy spirit lost its road? Come, in my labor find a resting place, and in my sorrows lay your head. Or rather take my life and blood and buy yourself a better bed. Or take my breath and take my death and buy yourself a better rest. When all the men of war are shot and flags have fallen into dust, your cross and mine shall tell men still Christ died on each for both of us. For in the wreckage of your April, Christ lies slain, and Christ weeps in the ruins of my spring, the money of whose tears shall fall into your weak and friendless hand and buy you back to your own land, the silence of whose tears shall fall like bells upon your alien tomb. Hear them and come. They call you home. Here, right across from our beautiful church home, rest those who have served, who have run their race, who have finished their course in faith. Let us remember them with honor. May their sacrifice not be forgotten. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.